I'm Duane Brumitt. He's Allie Alberigo, and this is the School Owner Talk podcast. Hello again, Duane Brumitt here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Hey, great to be with you again this week, sir.
Yes, always great to be with you and be on the podcast and share.
I know that, we say that every week, every time, but it's so true. This past weekend, we got to see each other as well because, we did the virtual / in-person seminar for each other's school for the martial arts, National Martial Arts Appreciation Month. So
yes,
I'm just curious, how did your, let me just say that my question was going to be how did your students like it and respond to it? But I'm going to preface this by saying that I asked everybody after we had already cut out, right? When we hung up with each other, I asked everyone, I said, hey, what was your favorite part? And we went around and they were talking about you. Your seminar was the favorite part over my part of the seminar, which was fun. And then the parents, I asked them the same question, and they really liked the history and the heritage of hearing about, your lineage and those type of things. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and likewise, my students love doing the kicking and training with you. And, I was really happy that I was able to let people know about your school and that you're a Christian martial arts school. And because I have a student who's a very devout Christian. He was on the floor and he was excited about that. But just knowing that you could hold to your moral standards and compass and still do what you do, without sacrificing, because it seems like our business, a lot of times we sacrifice our integrity to get more students, or we, make the classes easier to get more students, or we're less rules in the school so more people are okay with it. But I love the fact that you're, very, very, wouldn't say stringent, but you're pretty solid on your rules and regulations and who you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hidden. I mean, it's pronounced.
Right.
But like I had said on Zoom, when your student kind of asked a question, I'm unabashedly a Christ follower, but that doesn't mean that we can't get along. And in fact, the individuals, because I have people ask this question all the time. Do you get people that are like, not joining your school or have a problem with, you praying in the beginning of class and that type of stuff, and I go, I generally don't have a problem with anybody, but sometimes I've had more run-ins. I don't want to say problems, but run-ins with other Christians or supposed Christians, whichever you want to call it, by being in the martial arts. That was interesting. That's actually more interesting than somebody that isn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like my favorite band, is Stryper, which is a Christian heavy metal band. They get so much crap from other Christians because they named their album. One album was called To Hell with the Devil. That was okay, right? To send the devil back to hell. But then they had another one not too long ago. And God Damn Evil was the name of the album. But people are like, how do you cursing, using God's name in vain? They're like, no, God is damning evil. That's the name of the album. But of course, everyone has their own interpretation of it and they want to spin it to their own narrative. It's just like politics, the same bullcrud.
Yep. So, but we had a great time and I appreciate you being willing to do the seminar. And just so
people know, I know we're pretty clear on it, but we zoomed into each other's class during a Saturday afternoon. It was an hour and a half. So we both Saturday morning. Yeah. We taught 40, more earlier for you than it was for me. We were from 10 to 11:30. You taught 40 minutes, I taught 40 minutes, and the students would sit down and watch on the TV screen and train a little and listen, and then we'd break and we'd practice, and then we'd go back and talk some more. It was just a really fun way to mix our schools, and I was able to walk out in the lobby and go to parents. Can you believe it? Your kid's actually in Illinois right now, training with my friend at his dojo. And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think of it like that. They're, it's cool. And they're getting to see people that are from another state and train with them in essence, but virtually, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I just, wanted to thank you and appreciate you. So,
Yeah, my pleasure. So our podcast topic today is what?
time management for martial arts school owners, really balancing the dojo and your daily life. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, and my mom always said this about me is, you could take the business out of the boy, but you can't take or you could take the boy out of the business, but you can't take the business out of the boy. And how
Yeah.
right she was is
Yeah.
because as a business owner, I'm always thinking about business. I can't shut it off.
Oh,
And
dude,
that's the unfortunate part.
it's almost the curse.
It is, but over the years, I have developed some structure and framework that has allowed me to actually turn it off when I need to turn it off.
Uh,
And if you wouldn't mind, if I could kind of set the stage
yeah,
with
go
this
ahead. And I'm going
first,
to
and we
take
can.
notes. I'm going to take notes of what you say because I want to learn how to do that better. Because I have a hard time. Like I just you don't. I'll just quickly say this. Last night I'm asleep. I go to bed at 11. I tell my daughter I got to be up early because I have breakfast in the morning with my friends. She's, "Oh, Dad, you going to bed so early?" Like 11:30, right? Early for her. And I said, "Okay." I fall asleep like I was exhausted. 4 o'clock, boom, the alarm clock goes like you could see the time change. I'm wide awake, and I'm dreaming about stupid things that are not real, like fake things that are made up in my head, fears, I guess, that are down under that I worry about. Like, what if I go broke? What if I don't have money to pay my bills? What if all my students just together quit? Like, what if there's a fire? Like, what if, and I'm wide awake, like, and I'm like, I could feel myself getting agitated and anxiety. And I'm saying to myself, Allie, don't, this is not true. None of this is happening. It's all in your imagination. You're doing great. You have money in the bank. Like I try to rationalize with my brain, but I'm still wide awake because constantly 24/7, you and I are thinking business, dojo. How do we do it? So please tell everybody.
All right. So first thing that I do, and this is again something that's developed over time. I I develop my time, or I splice my time, however you want to say it, into four different categories.
Okay.
All right. So the first category is on the mat. Second category is off the mat. Third category is free from the mat. And then the fourth category is clean the mat.
Okay.
And I can, go into detail and explain what those mean. So first one, on the mat, it's pretty self-explanatory. So on the mat basically just means, you're teaching, inspiring, and interacting with the students
Right.
because that's what you do on the mat.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do anything else when you're on the mat. It's hard to think about marketing. It's hard to think about free time. It's although, sometimes you might be on the mat and go, man, I wish I was off today, but that's not
Right.
what I mean.
Right.
So when you're on the mat, it's on the mat time. So when you tie that belt, boom, you step on the mat. It's all about teaching, inspiring, and interacting.
Right. Right.
And I'm sure you could come up with different names that were more catchier with regards to
Right.
what teaching is. But really, it's developing that community and teaching them and inspiring them.
Got it.
So that's what on the mat is. Off the mat, obviously, that is what happens prior to stepping on the mat. So that's planning, projects, and patrons.
Okay.
So that's your focus is, how do what are you doing to plan? And then whatever project it is, to get that off the ground. And then how does that affect your patrons?
Right.
Off the, so that's off the mat. And that's just, and look, I'm talking about school owners right now. I'm not talking about yes, there's off the mat things that are happening with your program directors while you're on the mat teaching. That's not what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. So I'm just talking about you yourself as the school owner.
Yeah.
Free from the mat. Free from the mat. It's pretty self-explanatory. Those are your free days. Those are the days off. Okay?
Yeah, but that's not easy. But keep
Well,
going.
it is. It
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and I'll get into that in a little bit. It was not
Good.
easy for me in the beginning, but now
Right.
it's a little bit different. And then the last one is clean the mat. Clean the mat. Those are the days that you use to either catch up with things or to get ahead on things. They're kind of like a buffer.
Right.
So to maybe explain that one really quickly or generically would be have you ever you had a vacation coming up? Let's say you're going on vacation this Saturday, right? So
Yeah.
Your Saturday starts your vacation. You make a list of everything that needs to be done, by Friday before you leave on Saturday. And so you work really, really hard to get all those things done. Now you take a week's vacation and then you come back. Well, when you come back, the problem is you come back and you're on. Everything hits you all at
Right.
once.
Right.
But if you were to do a portion of your day, all your day, whatever it is, with the idea of clean the mat, I'm going to get in and I'm going to clean up whatever I need to clean up, catch up on
Yeah.
whatever I need to catch up before I get to on the mat or before I get to off the mat
Right.
when I'm working on my
Right.
projects and planning and patrons. And
Right.
so, though that cleaning the mat is that buffer that you give yourself, and or you get done with all of your projects and you know that you have another project that you've already set for the following week. Why not get ahead on it?
Right. Right.
So you go, I know that I'm going to complete this by, today, and then I have tomorrow where I actually had slotted this to be open. I can start working on that next project already, if
Yeah.
that's how your schedule is mapped out. And so you could actually get ahead. So you just, okay, this is my clean the mat section. I'm going to clean up or get ahead, that type of thing. Does that make sense?
Totally. I love it. On the mat, off the mat, free from the mat, and clean the mat. I think that's great, right? And I think that all of it, when you, like you said, you're away from vacation, you come back, and now you have to play pickup. But if you have time management skills, right? We wanted to talk a little bit about that. And what you said before, time breaking it down. I have a saying for that called, and I teach it, called time slicing. I teach it in my leadership team. I said, think about a pie, a pizza pie, the big New York style, big 12-inch or 14-inch pies. I go, just imagine that not being cut, right? And you try to pick it up to eat it. It's going to be bending and falling, cheese fall. It's unmanageable that way. So they cut it in 8 slices. But for kids, what do? We cut them in 16 slices. So the slices are even thinner. So it's like time slicing, breaking down your categories, right? Breaking down those pieces so that they're more manageable. So, that's something that I think a lot of people don't know how to do. And maybe if you want to go into that a little about how you manage and break down your time, even though out of these categories and so on, that'd be great.
Yeah. And before we get right into that, because this has to do with time management, is the off the mat time. So,
Right.
meaning being free from the mat, not off the mat, excuse me, free from the mat, are your days off. So
Right.
every calendar year we go through every year we go through our calendar and we close, I don't know, what is it, 6 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
So we have automatic free from the mat days that we have
Right.
built in. So, like this year we did President's Day. We were closed Monday and Tuesday. I'm looking this way so I can see our calendar that's actually up on the wall. A week for spring break. There was Memorial Day, so Monday and Tuesday. And the reason I also close on Tuesday, even though Memorial Day is on Monday, is because my operation runs, you come Monday, Wednesday, you come Tuesday, Thursday. So I can't close on Monday and let the Tuesday, Thursday people, get more classes.
Right.
So I
Right.
just close both days.
Right.
We close a week for the 4th of July, Labor Day, Monday and Tuesday, Columbus Day, Monday and Tuesday. This year we're going to be closed Wednesday and Thursday because of Halloween. Well, Halloween just happens to be on a Thursday, but we're also going to close on that Wednesday as well because again, I
Right.
can't have Monday, Wednesday people getting more.
Yeah. Right.
In November we close Wednesday through the rest of that week for Thanksgiving, and then December we always close for 2 weeks.
Right.
And so those are already built in, free from the mat days
Right.
for me as the owner,
Right.
where I don't have to step out on the floor and be on the mat. I don't have to work on, unless I've planned those things, but normally I don't have to work on projects. I don't have
Right.
to plan for them. I don't have to worry
Mhm.
about my patrons because that some of those off the mat things are going to be taken care of by some of the other staff members, like the project, or excuse me, the program director and or the head instructor on the days off if need be. And we have a limited, and our patrons know there's a limited amount of hours to be able to get a hold of us and or that we're going to respond back to them. Because again, I believe clear is kind. So we let them know, yes, we're off, but we will be periodically checking our messages. We won't be able to respond as quickly as we normally do.
Yeah, I love that. And basically, you have a 46-week year, the way you have it set up, and your team as well, right? Because there are no days that they're coming in when you're closed, right? They also have off.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that we sometimes fall into the trap thinking that if we're not open, students are going to be and parents are going to be pissed. When in reality, I found it to be the opposite. They almost are relieved when we say, hey, by the way, we're closed this coming Monday. Or when we have snow days, they're happy that we're closed. Like we made the decision to say, stay home and be safe. Because if not, in their mind, they'll be thinking, well, maybe I should try to get my kid there and try to come and get out on the bad road. So they like that break, and they like that they have permission to take off without feeling guilty or lazy or, bad about being, the parent who says, I don't want to bring my kid on, the day after or whatever, or during that snowstorm, right?
Now there's not to say that you can't do some things while you're off. I mean, we've had,
right.
Like in December, we do, over the Christmas break, we do a scavenger hunt, virtual. We still do that. We still do a virtual scavenger hunt.
Oh, cool.
With prizes and stuff like that, just to stay connected over that long break.
Yeah.
We've done over the long break, and I know this is not what the topic is, but I just want to throw this out there because, again, some people might say, well, you're going to lose connection. People are going to quit. We've done different challenges over the weeks that we've been closed as well. So, whether it's a physical martial arts challenge with regards to, push-ups, sit-ups, all those type of things, the amount of kicks you can do and or whatever, to virtual tournaments before, and had them, throw that, have to have it done by a certain time, and then they'll find out who wins when they get back from the break. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do to stay engaged, even though you are closed, but that you don't have to necessarily be involved with when you're free from the mat. And then just real quickly, when it comes to free from the mat time, I would also add along with that is when you're free from the mat, try not to read your business books and those type of things that get you to think about business. Watch some movies that have nothing to do with business, or watch some documentaries that have nothing to do with business. Read some books and do some activities that have nothing to do with your business, so that you're not trying to think about business. Like, that's just off the cuff idea.
Yeah.
So I believe it's important for you to schedule those things in advance. And that's exactly what we do, because we turn over our yearly calendar in December for next year. So that's also already scheduled. The other thing that's also scheduled for me, myself, is at least once a month, I take a long weekend. So that means that I'm going to be off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So whatever that week is, and then I'm working Monday through Thursday, and then I'm off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm already off Saturday, Sunday on most occasions anyways, but I add that Friday in. That just gives me another free from the mat opportunity as well. Does that make sense?
It totally does. The only thing that keeps coming back in my mind, and I know that probably a lot of listeners say, oh, that's easier. You got it down. You have the 6 weeks off. You already disconnect and are able to shut down. And I think that just we live in a world that we're just filled with crap, like filled with stuff, right? Like we always, like, for example, last night, my wife and myself and my daughter are sitting on our couches in our living room. We have the big TV going, and we're going to watch a show. We watched The Penguin, which is a new TV show that's, a Batman spinoff. I look around the room, and I'm on my phone, my daughter's on her phone, and my wife is on her phone, and we're all scrolling, watching Instagram videos while watching a movie. And you say to yourself, like, no wonder why we feel so stressed out, so harried, around, and why we don't get that downtime. But I remember when I was a kid, I remember we had MTV when they used to play music videos, and we would watch that for hours, but it was just, you didn't have a phone in your hand. You didn't have all this other distractions, a laptop, a computer. Like, you just enjoyed the moment. And I think that that's one thing that you're very good at. And I love the fact that, like, when you go away for your son, because he's on competition volleyball team, right? And he plays all around the state. You take a little bit of downtime as well to enjoy family time. And I just started learning recently to do more of that, with my wife by going to we have a home in Florida, and we try to go 6 times a year for like a long weekend, and maybe more. I said to my daughter, they're giving away homes, no joke, for free in Japan right now, giving them away. I said, how about we get a home in Japan? She goes, Dad, you barely get to Florida 6 times a year. When are you going to go to Japan? And I understand she's 100% right, because we just won't take the time, so that's very important to make note of to the people who are listening. You have to schedule your time, right? You have to block it out, right? You have to kind of delegate time to just do it, right?
Well, and that was where my next point was going to go anyway. So it's a great segue. Is you talk about time management. Part of our time is already managed for us. Well, what is that? That's the class time. That's on the mat. You have to be on the mat from 4 p.m. or whatever it is all the way to 9 p.m. And there's no, besides you getting sick or whatever, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And why does the on the mat time run so well? Well, because it's already scheduled for you.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you schedule your free time?
Exactly.
And then you're off the mat time, meaning planning, projects, patrons. Why wouldn't you schedule those things as well? And so everybody's different. You got to find out what works good for you, and I'll just throw this out there. Monday morning for me is I get at my desk right here, 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning from 8 to 10 p.m. All it is I am doing the schedules. I am looking at the hours from last week. I'm doing payroll. I'm paying bills. I mean, just all, and then checking my bank account, like all of those things.
Right.
That's all. And then, I already said the schedules. That's all I'm focusing in on for those 2 hours is getting all of that information done. And there's a couple other things that are inside of that. But basically, I've scheduled from 8 to 10, just that.
Right.
So I know every Monday it has to be done. Now it's watered down a little bit on my weeks off, because I don't have to do a schedule and some of those things. Some of them I will do ahead of time, but I still have to do payroll every Monday because we pay everybody every Monday. But that in and of itself and checking the time, I can get that done in 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so even on my off weeks, I still have to do payroll, but it's in, out, done, and I move on. I'm not going to delegate that to somebody else. So I don't want someone later on listening to this go or think, well, you're off. How do you get payroll done? I still take that time to do that, even though I'm off. Right. But again, the point is, your on the mat time is scheduled. Why wouldn't you schedule your off the mat time with your planning, your projects, and your patrons? And
that, you're right, though. That's so important. Like, I'm scheduling a trip. I'm going to England. I'm being brought in to speak at the Nest. It's a martial art billing company called Nest in England. They're flying me in, giving me room and board and food. So I'm bringing my wife and daughter. And I said, hey, let's turn this into a vacation. Spend 3 days at the convention, the rest of it in London, and then take a train over to France. But it's hard, dude, to schedule this out. Like, what are we taking to get here? Where are we staying when we're there? Where are we going to go when we're there? How do we get to France? And then where do we stay? It takes some skill to plan stuff out. And that's why a lot of our school owner friends, they don't do it, because it's not easy if you've never done it before.
Yeah, no, it is. And then you got to find out what works best in your schedule. So for instance, the way that we've scheduled this, we do our podcast mostly on Wednesday. And we never do them on any other day, but when we do them, we do them on a Wednesday. We've scheduled that time from X time to X time to do it. And then I myself afterwards have scheduled X time to X time to process it, get it up and ready. And then you have, your portion, your part, so in that process, I have time that's scheduled. And I have to, in order to get that done, it's got to be scheduled.
You block it out.
I do. So there's, and then my head is not in the game of working on planning and projects on Mondays or Wednesdays. It just isn't, because of all the other small little detailed things that I have to do. So for me, what works well is I do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are my big days for projects and planning. Right. That's where I get to my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning. everything has to be done before noon. And normally I don't put anything more than 3 items on my list each day to get done. And if I happen
Right.
to get done early, then I'm done early in most
Yeah.
occasions. But sometimes I'll work ahead. I'll go, okay, this is a clean the mat session. I can
Yeah.
look ahead and see if I can get things done. Or, hey, what did I miss that is still carried over that I need to get done? And then I'll
Right.
move that over,
Mm.
so that I can execute that as well. Does that make
Love it.
sense?
Totally does. I'm like I would say a master at goal setting and time management, and I've taken so many courses from Stephen Covey, Franklin Covey Institute, on these how to set goals, how to manage my time, how to prioritize my time. And I have to say, I try to teach that to my students, but and also clients in the martial art business. It's very difficult for people because they've never done that. Like they've always, if they worked at their career, the boss gave them or their manager gave them what they needed to do for the day. If they were more independent, they had to schedule their day. And very often they don't get done what they need to get done because they don't know how to prioritize. Like you said before, time slicing, right? Breaking it up into small, edible bites so that you could get it done.
Yeah, and I like the pizza analogy. I mean, that just says it all right there.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
with regards to, off the mat time, meaning, planning and projects and patrons, those need to be put into priorities. So what is the most important, project that needs to be done that I need to plan out, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's all going to depend upon, what your goal is with regards to those projects. But I just,
Yeah.
we always, I think everybody as human beings, we always want to do the lowest common denominator first. Like we want to do the
Right. The
easiest thing
easiest.
first.
Right.
Yes.
The more
Yes.
comfortable, most comfortable thing.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm in that category too, where I fall into that trap and then I
Yeah.
have to kind of slap myself. But the other thing is, again, going back to the reason our on the mat time is so great, that we have that time to teach, interact, inspire, is because that block or that slice of time is already created for us. So
Yeah.
in every routine activity that needs to be done on a weekly, monthly, daily, whatever it is basis, you need to find that slice of time that works
Right.
best and then just do it. And so I know, and you know this from me, is without a doubt, or mostly without a doubt, if you send me an email, you're not going to get a response until in the afternoon, because
Yeah.
I usually check my email at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then that's when I respond to everybody and get what I need to get done. Unless we were interacting with something and it was a part of a project and you said, yeah, I just emailed it over to you, that would be a different thing. And then I would go and grab that email. I'd find that email. And I used to, when I would go and find the email, let's say you sent me something that we needed to put together, I then would start to see myself veer off and start checking the other emails and have to
Right.
go, wait, no. This isn't the scheduled time to do this. Just get what you need to get done.
Yes.
And that discipline has afforded me more opportunities, because I'm a lot more scheduled.
That's interesting because when I started taking the Stephen Covey courses, there was a lot less to worry about, which they called time fillers and time thieves, right? Stealing your time. So like they would do executive time management courses to teach people who are in management or employees. And, there were no things like text messaging. They didn't get in the way because they just didn't have it, and emailing, right? Like it was mostly like memos came across your desk or maybe an occasional fax, but everything else was predetermined ahead of time. Now we have a lot of things that invade our time without our permission. Like, they're definitely something that jumps in almost like, hey, it's me, focus on me. It's like those students that you have in the classroom where they constantly raise their hand and they go, ooh, I got a question. I go like, you're not the only one that matters, right? You got to stay quiet and listen until I'm done talking, right?
Well,
are you getting distracted?
yeah, because this is it right here. You get those notifications that pop up on your phone. And if you have a watch that pops them up as well.
I have it too. Yep.
What do? You go and you take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and also too, not only does that throw you off track, but it also changes the direction of the thought that you had, that linear thought of you saying, hey, I'm going to focus just on getting this automation done. I'm going to write the letters, but hey, I just got to just answer this email real quick. And now you're like in a totally, you don't have the focus and concentration. It's almost like when you've written many books, you got to be focused on the book. Nothing else has to, you can't be thinking of 25 different things when you're writing paragraphs on a particular topic, right?
Yeah,
So,
and that's why, like, even with your, I have an iPhone. I know you have an iPhone.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how this is on an Android, but the thing that I like with the iPhone is I can set up different modes and I can have them actually go off at different times. So an easy one
right.
is, and Apple always asks you to set it up pretty much all the time anyways, is
Yeah,
when you first get a phone is your sleep mode. So what time do you want
right,
to go to bed? And then, who can contact you in the middle of the night, that type of thing. But then, it lifts at X time in the morning.
right.
But you can also create different modes. So the one is called focus mode. So if I'm going to focus, I can put it on focus. But I know, like, if I'm going to work on projects and plans at 8 a.m. on Tuesday and 8 a.m. on Thursday, I just create a focus mode that my phone pops right into that focus mode from
Hmm.
8 to 10 a.m. And then no one, unless like I put it on there, who can actually contact me.
Right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Emergency people are
Yeah,
important.
my wife can always get through. Our kids can
Right,
always get through,
right, right,
that
right, right.
type of thing.
Yeah,
No offense, but if you were to contact me, I wouldn't get it
yeah.
until
I
it went
hear
out
you.
of focus mode.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know how you. I know how you do it technically, but I don't know how you do it mentally because I'm on all the time. I get people texting me at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, parents, questions. I check my email, which I should never do at like 3 in the morning. Now I get one email that pisses me off. Man, my night is ruined as far as sleep goes, right? Like, oh, and now that's all I can think about, like so, or something came up or whatever. So anyway, long story short, we have to be, and by the way, you have to protect yourself like you're doing by putting it on focus mode against those outer forces coming in and penetrating your peace and tranquility, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
the other thing too is, and I know we're not talking about actual tools that we use because that could be a totally different
yeah.
podcast. But I will say this is, and I forget the book. I know I sent it to you, I think, but or I recommended it, whatever it was, and it's pretty technical. I think that's what you said to me. It was like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is fairly technical, like too technical for what
yeah,
we
yeah.
need. And I agree with you. But one of the things, and I can't think of the name of the guy that wrote the book, but he was talking about, uh, and I adopted Inbox Zero
Oh,
on
I
the way
remember the book.
the way that he created it. So I actually created a framework and a structure for our program director and also head instructors to make sure that we are Inbox Zero when we check our email. Like everything has a way. And then I created a standard operating procedure with a video and then also text to go along with how they're supposed to follow that structure and framework. And then I do the same thing. I've had Inbox Zero now ever since that I've read that book. But the other thing too, alongside of that, is he talked about that emails are for your clients. You should be emailing your clients or vendors or those type of things. But
Yeah,
emails, unless somebody needs an email, sent to them, an email should not be used for internal communication. Meaning, if I need to communicate with Mr. Bean, it shouldn't be through an email.
right,
He talked about a program called Slack. Well,
right,
I have the free version of Slack. I created a team. And then I have everybody that I need to communicate with on Slack. And then we're also in some groups together. So if I need to communicate to the head instructor and the program directors at the same time, I would just go into that channel. But the nice thing about it is I can put in what I want to put in, and then I can actually, just like an email would be, I can actually time it when I want it to be sent. So usually when I will think about something or I come across something that needs to be sent to Mr. Bean, the head instructor at our Bradley location, I'll send him a Slack, but I know he's not into the studio until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I
right.
actually time it so that it will be sent to him at 1 p.m.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's great.
Now, the
I was,
reason I bring that up is because I normally will tell my staff that I know I'm available, during the day. So if you came up with something you want to Slack me, that's fine. But please Slack me, have it unless it's an emergency, otherwise please set it up so that it comes to me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the same time that I'm dealing with my emails.
Right.
So I just consider that another, another messaging thing that I have to, work with.
Right.
Now, do I get some on other times? Yeah. Sometimes the program director doesn't come in until, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they have a question or whatever. And of course, then they email or they Slack me, and
Yeah.
then we can solve it that way. That's different. But I even try to splice my time or slice it in a way that, hey, look, if you can wait and send it at 1 o'clock, I want you to send it at, 1 o'clock or after.
So, so, so identifying the core responsibilities of what you do, right? That's part of our chat today. And then, how to differentiate between urgent versus important tasks, right? And that's what you're basically saying, and I people don't realize this, but what you're saying is absolutely true. Sometimes for me, frustrating as well, where I'm like, hey, I got to ask Duane a question. I'm making something, a poster, and I want to get it out, but I'm like, he's not going to answer his email until like the afternoon, but I'm working on it in the morning. And I'm like, I want to get it done now. I don't want to have to wait to his time schedule. So that's quite frustrating for me at times. However, I love the fact that you're able to do that, right? Like that's amazing. And so, what are the non-negotiables of, in running a martial arts school, teaching, student engagement, business operations? Like, how do you categorize all of those things to identify your core responsibilities when it comes to being the owner, the COO or CFO or CEO of the company?
Well, I guess I'm ultimately responsible for everything when it comes
Right.
down to it, right? So no
Right.
matter what's going on, I'm responsible. Now that being said, I can put people in charge. I can delegate, some
Yeah.
of these responsibilities and follow up. And
Yeah.
really, what I try to do is create those delegations in a way that it's clear cut. There's one person in charge of it. Even if it was a multi-person task, there is one person that's ultimately in charge of that task. So I know who
Right.
to go to if I got a question.
Yeah.
Um, and personally, I try not to micromanage, and that was hard for me to do in the beginning.
Yes.
And I will tell you that, Mr. Bean has proven himself time and time again that and he's been very gracious the times that I've tried to step on his toes and micromanage. He's been very
Yeah.
gracious, to go ahead and let me do it, even though I was wrong,
Right.
to step on his toes. But
Yeah.
he was kind enough to let me grow through that phase, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
So,
interesting. I mean, I find that too, like, as an old school owner who did everything my way or the highway type mentality, which I do miss those days because, it left a lot. Uh, Nowadays, it leaves a lot for interpretation. Like when you give people the freedom to do things on their own, sometimes they'll do it on their own. And then you'll say, that's not at all what I was hoping to get done. Right. Like, for example, sometimes I tell my guys, for example, we're doing a breast cancer awareness month fundraiser, and it's $20 in cash. They buy a belt, and the whole $20 goes towards the fundraiser. We have pink belts for the month of October, and just the other day, I came in and there were all these charges. It's supposed to be cash, but now I got all these charges on the credit card charges for the belts. I'm like, I already told you guys cash. Oh, I don't remember you saying that. And I want to slap people when that happens because I know I said it. They just weren't listening. So, so anyway, now I have to pay the percentage on all the charges. That's going to, I'm paying it out of my pocket. The entire money raised goes towards the fundraiser, but it's frustrating. So it just reminds me that I have to be extra diligent about specific writing it out, maybe saying if you're going to collect money, it's only cash, whatever it might be. So I can mail that right to the fundraiser, that kind of thing. But you have to be very specific.
well,
So,
and not only do you have to be specific on what you want, I think sometimes when appropriate, you have to, at least with your staff members, spell out why
yes,
it's that way. You
yes,
know, so, for instance, I've had program directors before where they're like, why are we calling 7, 8, 10, 12 times when they don't
right,
answer, or when we got to keep leaving a message or whatever. And then I have to go into, now I realized that, I shouldn't say now, I realized a long time ago that I need to explain it in a way that it's not just, look, here's what we do it.
right,
It's here's what we do, here's why we do it this
right,
way, and here's why I need you to do it this way. And
Right.
so, I just give them this fictitious example of I say we spend $1,000. We get 10 leads. Those 10 leads cost us how much? Oh, $100. Yes. So every time that somebody does not answer, that's $100 loss.
Right.
They don't come in. They're like, oh, I said, that's $100 phone call.
Right.
I go, if there was $100 at the end of that line, how many times would you call?
Right. Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
meaning that you've already lost $100.
Right.
Like you already lost $100. How many times are you going to call that person going, hey, look, you owe me. Hey, you owe me. Like you wouldn't stop
Right.
calling
Right.
in most occasions. And there are going to be a percentage of the individuals that are never going to pick up, that aren't going to follow through. And yeah, we are going to stop at some point, but I don't want to stop at 7. I don't want to stop at 10. I will stop at 12, or unless they already tell me, yeah,
Right.
look, hey, we don't want you to contact us anymore. We're not interested.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I had to spell it out in a way that they understood from a business standpoint why it's so important that we follow up with that. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Totally does. And that leads into a few other topics that we wanted to discuss, which was the 80-20 rule, right? Which is, how, the Pareto Principle, how to apply time management for martial arts schools, right? So can you explain that a little? But that also, what you just talked about was about setting boundaries too with your staff, and making sure that they understand, like if they don't do those phone calls, that there's going to be consequences, right? If they're just ignoring you, if they don't make the announcements like they're supposed to, it affects the bottom line. So we basically went over that, just before. So what do you think about the 80-20 rule?
Well, it's a principle, and here's the funny thing is, notice it's not called a theory;
Right.
it's called a
Yeah.
principle.
Right.
Because it actually, and I'm not saying that theories can't become true, but this is an actual principle. This 80-20 rule, I like to call it an 80-20 rule, really is, you need to focus on, basically 20% of your work should be, or excuse me, the 80-20 rule is that you want to focus on the percent, right? The 20% of the tasks that are going to drive 80% of your results in your business.
Right. Right.
And so, like just firing off, what would be a task that could raise your bottom line immediately this month?
Well, if I would say, would be what you talked about before, is just following up on the leads that maybe set up an appointment or didn't show up for an appointment, or set up an appointment and came in once and didn't come back. Those would be a major focus, because that's like, what are the 3 categories? New students, existing students, and then of course you have other outside events, whether it be parents' night outs, retail sales, that kind of stuff. But the 2 most priority are new students and existing students.
Right. And so, that's where you need to spend the bulk of your time is, how do I create an experience for my existing students so that they stay? And
Right.
how do I create an experience for these potential students so that they join?
Right.
And
Right.
we solved those 2 problems. We've solved everything in our business, really.
Right.
I mean, we just really have. So when it is, and you've brought this up before, and this has nothing to do with martial arts, but you've coached somebody before that was talking about, that their business was hurting and those type of things, and yet I don't, what was it? How many hours a day they're playing guitar?
Oh man, that's a while ago, but they were like probably like 12 to 13 hours a day. They brought their guitar. They had a guitar at their dojo in the office. And trust me, I'm a guitar player. I could get addicted to playing for hours on end. But they were playing like 13 hours a week, or a day, I'm saying, a day. And I'm like, you could take 10 of those hours and put it into marketing and growing your studio. Maybe you're going to be a guitar player, you'll be good at it, but you're not going to go out and do it for a living, I don't think. So you better
No.
get the living thing down first, and making the money first. Then you'll have all the time in the world to play your guitar.
Yeah. So then the thing is, you really want to find the 20% of the tasks that are going to bring you the revenue that makes your business money, and
Right.
you
Right.
If that is in your wheelhouse, meaning that
Yes.
that is your what Dan Sullivan would call your unique ability, then
Hmm.
you need to be doing those things.
Yes, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
absolutely. And so playing your guitar, surfing social media, making
Right.
comments on those are just that stuff is just so low hanging fruit that like you shouldn't be doing it. The only time you should probably do it is when you sit on the toilet and then you can go through while you're doing your business, make comments on people's posts or something like that just to stay relevant or whatever. But see, even that, truth be told, even that is the time that I will go to my own uh, social media pages for our schools, and
Yeah.
then people that have liked our ad, I invite them to join our page.
Right.
Or that they've made a comment and need a reply to it. I make a comment and then reply through Messenger
Yeah.
to them, those type of things. Like, and look, I'm mostly doing that when I'm on to John.
That's funny though. I had a client as well that he said that he wasted more time in the bathroom because he like you got to get in and get out, right? You're not going to stay in there for 40 minutes. But he would stay in there because he was doing surfing YouTube and surfing Instagram. And, I'm like, dude, like, wouldn't you rather do that on your couch rather than sitting on the toilet? But at the same time, there was a lot of extra added wasted time that didn't need to be done. And that time wasters are everywhere. We call them time. I call them time vampires, right? They'll
Yeah.
suck the life out of you and take all your time. And before you know it, you're done with the day. It's over and you got nothing done.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, Dan Kennedy talked about it in one of his books, Time Vampires,
Yeah.
one of his time management books. In fact, I love one of his phrases because I've used it before is, he talks about time vampires. What does he say? Somebody walking around, they're like somebody walking around looking to plug their umbilical cord into you. Like,
Ah, yeah.
I love that phrase.
That was a big problem for my program managers when I had, all the schools and I had, 8 program managers and, they would have to ask me, how do I disengage? It's Mrs. Smith. She's a great parent. I love talking to her. She's such a nice lady. She drops her kid off and she's got nothing to do for the next 45 minutes. She just wants to sit and chat with me. And I have a lot of work to do. And I used to have to explain to them, you could talk for a few minutes and then say, hey, listen, I got to get to this thing that Shihan wants me to do. So I don't get in trouble. Like blame it on me, but that's how you can disengage from the wasted time, those time vampires.
Well, and this was a phrase that Stephen Oliver gave me is, no, but what do you need? So
Right.
when somebody asks, hey, do you have a second? No, but what do you need?
Yeah.
That thought that was genius. And
Yes.
I'm going to pay you $10,000 so that we could pay our thing. Oh yeah, I got time. Let's go ahead and do that.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
I was going to complain about Johnny's class. Okay. Well, let's set up a time so that we can, not talk about this in front of all the parents. Let's set up a time that we can,
Right.
do our due diligence and
Yeah.
and talk about it. So, but
I love it.
no, but what do you need? You know,
Right.
I love that. Now, could it be something different? Oh, not a lot of time, but yeah, what do you need?
Right.
Or I have just a second. I'm sorry, but what do you need?
Yep.
Like you
Exactly.
could tailor it and set it up that way. My
Love it.
wife, who she'll help me on because she has some health clients too, and she has that difficult time steering the conversation to end the call. Because
Oh, okay.
it's supposed to be a 5 to 7 minute check-in. That's really all you need, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes she's on the phone for 20 minutes.
Right.
And I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, she's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? She's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I know I need to cut it off. But I'm like, yeah, no,
Right.
she goes, you sound so rude when you just start giving out directives. I'm like, look, they're on program. I'm coaching them. I am friendly, but I'm not their buddy.
Right. 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 Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I
Totally.
care about them, but look, okay, yeah, you ate the Twix bar. I get it. Don't beat
Right.
yourself
Right.
up
Right.
over it. You ate it. It's done. It's over with.
Yeah.
What do you want to do moving forward? Do you want to eat it again or not eat it again?
Yeah. I have.
Well,
I
yeah,
have.
but I just ate it. And I go, yeah, I understand, and you can tell me
Yeah.
3 or 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. It's
Yeah.
still the same thing. You ate it.
Yeah,
But what are
you're
we going
not
to do
going to
now?
throw it up and get rid of it. You can't reverse the process right now. Well, I
Right.
have a business partner like that who says, "You got a second?" And I'm going, "Well, first of all, actually, how much time do you need? And secondly, I'm only going to spend 5 minutes with you. And then, like it'll be 5 minutes of nothingness. And then I'm like, okay, we're at the 5 minute mark. Okay, well, let me tell you what I want to. Now we're into 10 minutes. And then I'll say, okay, I got to go. And then she'll talk about something else. I got to go. And then she'll talk about something else. Finally, I'll say, all right, I'm hanging up on you now
Yeah.
because I told you I only wanted to spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but you got 40 minutes now out of me. I'm not doing it. And sometimes she'll text me, are you at your computer? I go, no, I'm laying on the couch watching TV with my family. Can you talk? Nope. Unless it's life or death. No, I can't, because I know it's going to turn into a 20. And then both my daughter and wife are sitting there while the movie's on pause while I'm like, yeah, I got to go. And it's just taught. You got to this part of our topic is to set boundaries sometimes and be able to stop it, without letting people run over you.
Yeah, and just identify those people in your life, whether it's a patron, one of the parents, or even one of the students, whatever it is. Come up with a way to be able to have that framework and what you're going to say. And Shihan, do you have a minute? No, but what do you need?
Right.
And then if it's somebody that you are in reoccurring contact with, so like I've learned with any health clients that want to, talk with me as opposed to discuss what we need to do in order to get to the goal that they want to go with.
Yeah.
I let them know at the beginning of the call and say, hey, man, I'm glad we connected this week. Just so you know, I've got a call right after ours,
Yes.
or I have an appointment. Most of the time I'll say I have an appointment right after our call. So we've got about 5-7 minutes here and then I got to let you go.
Yeah, that's great. Setting those boundaries. That's what I do with my coaching clients as well. I'm like, okay, it's ends on the half hour. I'm like, okay, we have about 8 minutes left, and then so what are your last questions or what would you like to go over? And then I'm like, okay, we're running out of time. I got to jump onto my next call. And they're very good that way. Okay, we'll talk later. I go, or email me if you have more questions. I'll answer it via email. And then I'll wait till 3 p.m. to answer no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I just think that really time blocking or time slicing, making those scheduled blocks of time are extremely important. I mean, I remember one time I was on the phone with my brother and I told him, I said, I got to let you go in a little bit. And we're talking and talking and talking. And then I go, look, I got to let you go. It's 9 o'clock. I said, I have an appointment. And he goes, you have an appointment at 9 o'clock? I go, yeah. He goes, what's your appointment? I said, I have an appointment with myself.
Right.
And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, I got to let you go. It's my time now.
Yeah. I love that. I mean,
I know it sounds harsh. I know it sounds harsh, but it's like, no. And look, if you wanted that time, I'd be like, yep,
right.
It is what it is.
It's funny though. Life is short, right? And we only have 24 hours in a day, right? 7 days a week, 156 hours a week, I think it is, right? So, when I work with coaching clients, that people who don't know where their time is going, I have them do a time journal. And this is the most difficult thing, by the way, for most people to do. And I have them from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed, they have to write down what they're doing. So I don't want extreme detail. I went to the bathroom and did this or did that. I just want to know how much time they spent in the bathroom. Right? Like, or how much time did they spend eating lunch, or how much time did it take them to get to their job? And then I want them to write all the things down from morning to night. They go to sleep and they do it again. And they have to do that for a whole week, 2, if possible, because most people are on their best behavior and aware of what they're doing on the first week. Right. But then after the second week, they start getting more honest and a little sloppy with what they do. And then we look at the time and we color coordinate it into 3 or 4 categories. So we'll highlight in yellow all the things that were business based, all the things that were, relaxation based, all the things that were personal. Right. And then we look at those things in those categories. And quite often I'm able to say like, wow, dude, you only marketed your school for like 3 hours this week. That's it. You weren't on social media. You didn't go out and hand out flyers. No wonder why you're not getting many leads, right? And you really didn't work on upgrading any clients, or there's like very clear things in those journals about figuring out what our time is being done, what's being done with our time. So I think that that's essential. And I could share that with people if they get this and they want to message me on Facebook. I could share with them on journaling and, you know, how to figure out like what you're actually doing. Sometimes we're busy, and at the end of the week, we got nothing done. We weren't lazy. It's not like we sat around and slept all day and laid on the couch. We were working, but did we do things productively? No. And that's a big problem.
And I think, you know, look, to close this out, to kind of go back to what, you know, we originally talked about with regards to, you know, breaking things down into 4 different sections. Again, on the mat, off the mat, free from the mat, and then clean the mat. So again, on the mat is you're teaching, interacting, inspiring. Off the mat is you're working on your project, your plans, you know, your patrons. Free from the mat are your free days. It's just time off. And then clean the mat is your catch-up days or the get ahead days. If you start to structure your days in a way, you call it time slicing, I call it time blocking, doesn't matter. But if you start to structure it from this time to this time, I'm going to do X. From this time to this time, I'm going to do Y. From this time to this time, I'm going to do Z. Yes, you're going to be able to complete. Some you're going to overestimate. Some you're going to underestimate. You'll start to get a feel for how it works as you move forward. The thing is that you'll look back at the end of your day, literally the end of your day, and go, wow, I got all of this done. Because you can look back at your time blocking and go, wow, I completed all these tasks during this time frame.
Yeah.
And then you could go back and then at the end of your week going, wow, I accomplished all of this.
Right.
Because how often is it, especially when we're running a school, that we get through the end of the literal day and we go, what the heck did I do all day?
Right.
Because we're not taking notes. We don't have a list. We're just running, you know, trying to catch our tail.
Yeah.
And look, can you run like that for a little bit? Sure. But it's crazy to continue to run like that all the time. Block it out. Decide. And look, you've already decided what your on the mat time is. Why not decide what your off the mat time is, what your free time, you know, is based upon your free from the mat, and then cleaning the mat, catching up, and your buffer days, you know, to get ahead on things as well. I think it's that simple. And our business really is a simple business. There's complexity in some aspects, but really it's a simple model and it's cyclical. So what I mean by that is that pretty much what you're going to do every Monday is what you're going to do every Monday. And pretty much what you're going to do every Friday is going to be done every Friday. Why? Because you have the same classes on Mondays that you have on Mondays and the same classes you have on Fridays. Like a bulk of your day is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Every quarter, every month, there are things that happen every single year in a martial arts industry. So it's cyclical. Like you could almost write a manual on how to run a school. And if you followed that every single year, at least for 4 years, you know, you and your team shouldn't be too bored. You might have to jazz it up a little bit onto the 5th year. But really, I mean, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy.
Right.
It is hard, but it's simple. And it's cyclical. Does that make sense, or am I just simplifying it too much?
No, well, I mean, I never say the martial art business is easy, because it's definitely one of the most difficult businesses I ever ran. However, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like once you put the time, this is what most people don't do. They don't put the time in to develop the systems, the automations, the whatever ahead of time. They don't want to put that time in now, so that their life is easy in the future. Because really, it's pretty easy. You know, you're running an automation for, let's say, Halloween. You did it last year. You could just, with Spark, you could recopy it and just update it for this year. Minor changes. It's done for you. Like that's how easy that is. But if you hadn't done it ever, it's an arduous project, especially if you don't know how to do it. Right. That's what people get frozen in, you know, what is it? Analysis paralysis. They're frozen in indecision. So that's the hardest part. And we had so much to go over, but we only covered a little bit We may want to try to continue this more on another podcast because there's a lot.
Yeah, maybe we just go into a part 2 and kind of talk about some of the other things that we discussed that we would like to get into. So maybe next week we'll go ahead and do a part 2 to this.
All right. Awesome, dude. I love it. But yeah, this was a long podcast. We did an hour and killed it. And we only got like halfway through all the things that we wanted to chat about. So, I think that if people listen to our podcast, they could literally get any piece of information that they ever wanted in their school. Because we've either had a guest on, talked about it, or did it, you and I together and so on.
Yep. Yeah. So I appreciate you, sir. And I want to just remind everybody, like Allie said, past topics, go to schoolownertalk.com. There's a ton of information that's there. Also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, write a review. It definitely will help us. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Duane. It's so great seeing you. And everybody have a great week and be productive.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk podcast. This would not be possible if it weren't for the support of our amazing sponsors. Please check out Elite Insights for all your website needs. LeadHunterMedia.com, your online digital marketer and content provider. Academy Kings BJJ Growth Consulting and Management Group at GrowMyAcademy.com. SparkMembership.com, hands down the best martial arts software for school owner management on the planet. GetKarateStudents.com, a martial arts growth consulting company for all your systems. AddHealthCoaching.com, helping school owners create a whole nother revenue stream for their school. We will see you next time.